G'day guys, and today I thought I'd share with you all a little change in my thinking that has occurred just recently as a result of reading 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. Now, I won't be engaging with the more dramatic, overreaching ideas of the book or the rules themselves. It was just a small thing relating to expediency. So what we see in the world quite a bit is people who do things in the moment. They do what is practical and convenient for them rather than what is considered to be proper, whatever proper may be, depending on the situation. And I've always had a limited amount of empathy for these people and even somewhat a sense of disdain, because for myself, I've always tried to construct my life such in a way that I can sacrifice things in the present for greater gain later. So what I've always said to people is that I try to live in the future, because you're going to end up in the future no matter what, because we have no control over time, so we may as well ensure that our futures are good. And a few other people talk about this. It's part of a large debate going on at the moment about the deferral of gratification, and this ties back into libertarianism and things like that, but I won't address that now. I just want to address this little change in my thinking that has occurred. So what Jordan Peterson, I should say, talks about in the book quite a bit is the inherent suffering of reality. And this is something I've already come to terms with, and I highly recommend everyone else come to terms with, because if you're not prepared for the suffering that you will inevitably encounter in life, if you're not expecting it, it's going to be that much more worse. If you go into life a bit naive, it can seriously knock you over, which is not very good. So of course you should accept the inherent suffering of reality, but what this does is that it promotes a desire for expediency, because if we think, if everything is just so terrible, we really want to alleviate this terrible feeling of being alive and existing in this reality which has inherent suffering. Even for just a small amount of time, we really just want to step away from this and step away from the responsibility of ensuring safety for ourselves and happiness and all these great important things that we do. And I've come around to the idea that, yes, that's I have a bit more empathy for people who are expedient now, because I'm more aware, based on this reading I've done and the way Jordan Peterson puts it, of the inherent suffering of reality. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong in your life, and I think it's truly inspiring as he points out that no matter, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in our lives, and we should really be quite anxious, because, at any moment we could just drop dead from a blood clot, or we could crash our cars, but we don't, and we don't seem to panic about this and stay in our homes. We're happy to go out into the world and try to make it a better place. So it's really inspiring. But on the flip side to this, I can understand now why people may be sort of tended towards expediency. And to compound this, we have to think not only about the inherent suffering reality, but the human capacity for evil. So to paraphrase what Jordan Peterson says in the book, humans are aware of the suffering of reality, both past, present, and future. So we can think about future hurts, we can think about past hurts, and we can experience pain in the present, obviously. We understand how this makes us feel, as opposed to animals, and thus we can learn how to purposely provoke these feelings in others. In short, we know how to be evil. The human capacity for evil, to spread fear, misery, to hate reality itself, and to take this out on the others, promotes a desire for expediency like nothing else can. So we can think of a few examples such as, oh, my boss is so terrible to me, I wish I could just not go to work. Or, he makes me feel like a worthless person fit only for ignominy and shame. I wish I could just escape this feeling even for a short bit of time. And this is something else that I think bears merit to think about when we're dealing with people and trying to give advice and trying to make the world a bit of a better place, is that some people are really just being brought up in terrible situations. Not only do they have to deal with the inherent suffering of reality itself, but they have to deal with people being evil to them. This may not necessarily be a choice on their part. Say, for example, someone is very high in agreeableness and openness, and they're happy to be tolerant of people who may not want the best for them, but they don't want to promote a confrontation. At that point, you have to say, look, you've let this person into your life. But we have a lot of people nowadays with the rise of single-parent households who are basically being born into households which give them massively increased chances of being sexually abused, of being hit as a child, of drug problems, of crime, of dropping out of school, and all these horrible things. And I feel great empathy for these people now, because obviously they didn't choose to be born this way. The circumstances of their birth were just handed out to them like a hand of cards. And the fact that these people tend to be, criminals and drug users and that sort of thing, and they have all these problems, it's harder for me now to just say, oh, they didn't defer gratification, shame on them. I can have a bit of a better understanding now why people might be tend towards expediency now, because if your life is so horrible, because reality has suffering in it, and also people are being evil towards you, whether they intend it or not, no matter how good they may think they're being, how good their intentions are, they can still be horrible in the worst ways possible. I can now understand why these people might just want to escape these feelings for a little bit of time. Of course, I should make it quite clear, I'm not recommending the rejection of the deferral of gratification, because I do think, the future exists, we're going to end up there. We should construct the future such that it's most beneficial to us, even if this may somewhat hurt us in the short term. So for example, you really should hold down a job because you're going to end up in the future and you're going to need resources. So it would be really nice, to stay in bed this morning instead of getting up and going to work early, but it's better off in the long run to go to work. And, there's plenty of things you should really, really be in the gym and exercising, or exercise in any way possible, because obviously we're all going to get old and our bodies start to fail, and we obviously want to leave our bodies in very good hands, and that relies on us taking responsibility now and actually doing something about it. I think this small change in perspective is really going to help me be able to help other people, both in the across the medium of the internet, like I'm doing right now, or in a more interpersonal sense, like sitting across from a table from a friend per se. Because if we think about Aristotle's triangle of rhetoric, which is essentially a framework on how to construct a convincing case, one of the points on this triangle is of course pathos. Now pathos is important because it's what distinguishes someone from speaking in a very monotone, robotic voice. Essentially, imagine Siri on your phone or whatever giving you an impassioned argument on how to change your life for the better. It's not quite as effective as someone who's very energetic, moves their hands around a lot, changes the timbre of their voice, and they have very inspirational stories to back it up, and they use very interesting language and that sort of thing. It's far more engaging to listen to that person. No matter how good your argument or advice may be, if you just can't hold people's attention, then you're never going to convince anyone of anything. Getting a bit off topic there. So getting back to the main point of the video, through reading 12 Rules for Life and being so viscerally reminded of the inherent suffering of reality and human capacity for evil, and all the, of course, Jordan Peterson loves going into his archetypes and that sort of thing, I think I've gained a bit of a better understanding as to why people may indulge in expedient behavior, which I previously had very little tolerance for. This is going to help me give out better advice to people, because I'll be more personable and I'll be able to understand their point of view a bit better. This is probably not what Jordan Peterson intended when he wrote the book, but it was actually just a little side effect that I've had from reading that book. I can actually highly recommend the book. I'm only halfway through at the moment, but it's lots of good stuff in there, lots of important wisdom I think everyone should know. Thanks all for sticking around, and have a good one.